What's up, Miami fans? This is Brian Smith, publisher of All Hurricanes on Fan Nation. Going to talk some Miami defense today. Here's my hook for you. How good would Miami be if they just went up a little bit, not like tremendously, but just a little bit in a few key categories on defense? I'm going to go into the stats because I'm a stat dude. But if you could just add another 5% overall of productivity for this Miami defense. Could this be a top 10 team or better? In my opinion, yes. And I'm going to dig into the stats here to back it up. But I just kind of want you to put that in the back of your mind because, like most close games, think of the A&M game. It's by far the best team they've played so far. When you make a key play, not just a 5-yard pickup on a 3rd and 5, but you hit the hammer and you drop it on them, it changes the emotion of a game. That pass deflection, an interception, a big hit by Williams, something like that changes momentum. That 5% that you get in a game, just 2 or 3 more plays, it changes the complexion of a game, especially if you can do that early and set a tone. And that's what this is going to be about. I think Miami, just looking at the stats, they've left some meat on the bone, if you will. And they played pretty well on defense. I'm not bitching and saying that they're not good. It's just there's still a little bit of room to go. So this isn't going to be a super long podcast, but it's going to be to the point. And I'm not picking on any one player. This is an opportunity for all the players, honestly. This is unique. Usually there's a center point. This player needs to do this. It's more about a group effort. So it is a little unusual in that regard. But let's start off with this. If I was to ask you, where is Miami ranked currently in the nation? And for the record, there are 133 teams now in the FBS. It keeps going up. 133 teams. Once a team enters the red zone, which is your own 20, once they enter that, what would you rank Miami just off the top of your head in number of times they allow a touchdown? Not a score, because that includes field goals, but a touchdown. I was a little surprised that it wasn't a little better, but A&M made that work some, and part of it was, a little bit of a turnover situation with the special teams. But still, Miami's only 39th. Considering the upgrade from the portal and the upgrade that Miami had with recruiting, I mean, Ruben just alone, that's obviously a very good player. They're only 39th. If they're like 20th, 18th, something like that, which really is only a few more plays. Again, we're talking razor thin here. And this is why coaches bitch and moan about every inch matters. It does. Hand placement, not just get it on his shoulder exactly where you want when you're rushing the passer or trying to stop the pass, whatever it is for every position. It's an inch. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. A few of the plays that Miami hasn't capitalized on, whether it's a pass rush, whether it's a blitzer, not timing it right, things that may not exactly go into the stat sheet, but I guarantee you all the defensive line coaches and linebacker coach, etc., they all know that it matters. So 39th to me is not good, and that's point 1. 2, this is an overall thing, but it's such an epidemic. This is number one problem with the team. But the defense is part of it, and I just wanted to mention it. Miami is infamous for committing stupid penalties at the wrong times over the last 20 years. That is not a secret. But this is actually a really good team. So this doesn't make sense. They're 114th in the nation in penalties. Let me repeat that. The 2023 Miami Hurricanes, a very good football team, out of 133 teams, are 114th in penalties. Makes no sense. They have a ton of veterans they brought in. I mean, they got 15 kids out of the portal, for crying out loud. So not only did you bring in a good recruiting class with a lot of kids that can play, you brought in a ton of good players that have made a bunch of plays too that are more experienced because they have already been in college. Doesn't make sense. On top of that, some of them have not exactly come at the greatest times. That's part of it, though. I mean, you got to overcome, and they have. They're 4-0, so at the end of the day, it didn't matter. But if that trend continues, eventually you're going to lose. In that couple weeks, they play North Carolina. That one in particular, you give Drake May extra yardage, yeah, that's not going to end well. That must be fixed post-haste. And I'm going to say it now just as a little extra because I want to start talking about this over the next few days on All Hurricanes and here on this podcast. Haynes King, the quarterback that's now at Georgia Tech, who was at A&M, and I didn't think much of him. He is, for whatever reason, I have no idea what's happened. He's much better. Miami screws around, especially if Cam Kinchins is not back there helping Williams. That's a great player you're not having on the field. If you give him extra yardage, that game can be a lot uglier than you want it to be. In the second half, you got to fight. There should be a team Miami can knock out by the mid-third quarter, but if they screw around penalties, they can go down to the last 2 drives. Don't screw around with that. So what can Miami do better to take the defense up a notch? That's the main theme of this. And I went into one of my favorite stats, and that's talking about chunk yardage plays. CFB Stats, just a shout out to them. I don't make nothing off of this. It's a free online service. Every stat known to man. It is phenomenal. Just go to the national category and you can look at anything you want. 10, 20, 30, 40-yard plays. Those are the ones that I look at. And despite all the talent that Miami has on defense, and it's a bunch, they're still not that great at giving up in some of those. And this is where it gets into the team section. Somebody will automatically probably say, oh, it's a secondary. Is it? Because some of them or the linebackers aren't in spots they should be. Some of it's blitzes didn't get home that probably should have. Part of it's credit to the other team. Obviously, hey, they give scholarships as well. And then again, secondary didn't always make what they needed out of this. So just going to read down the list, and this isn't an end-all be-all, but it is an assessment that you can use. It's just a checkbox. How many did you have? Did you give up more than somebody else that probably doesn't have as much talent? You could go in deeper than this, but here they are. Passing plays of 10 or more yards for the Miami Hurricanes. They are 41st in the nation. It's not horrendous, but they should probably be better. 20-yard plays, 43, so it's pretty much the same. 30-yard plays, this is where it bothers me. 68th, that is not acceptable. 40-yard plays or more, 63rd. You cannot tell me with Jaden Davis, who's playing out of his mind, Corey Couch just had 2 picks. I think we kind of know that James Williams, he's pretty good. They've got a lot of guys back there. Why are they giving up big plays? It's here. It's not physical. That's mental. And I understand that Lance's defense isn't always easy. And I'd mentioned that at All Hurricanes on this podcast, etc. It's first year. There's no shortcut there. For him to run his scheme, he's got to install it. There's no friendly because there's not even in the stratosphere enough practice time for a first-year college coach. And Lance would tell you that. He would. Because you need a gazillion reps with all the different blitz packages alone. Not even counting nickel and dime and then the blitz packages on top. I'm just talking about base defense. It is precision that you're looking for. And they don't always get to do it the way they want because there's just not enough practice time. But they got to figure that out because as the quarterback level goes up and the ACC is good. Haynes King and Drake May are the next 2, and I'll just stop there. Both those kids can kill you. If you're off on your blitz package, if you have a bust, we don't know when Cam's coming back, etc. Those numbers, as scary as it is, at 68 and 63 for the 30-plus plays and then the 40-plus plays, could go up. You screw around against Power 5 teams, they will gouge you. And I know everybody's saying, oh, it's Georgia. I'm telling you, Georgia Tech is not the same team that you've seen. They're a lot better. They're not going to out-talent Miami. But if you have Bus, King's got an arm. He'll zing it in there. That's not going to be a problem. Not at all. And Drake May is a top 5 pick. So that's self-explanatory. So I'm very concerned about that. And it brings up the following question. You got to break it down into segments from there. Is it more of a pass rush issue? Is it first level of the defense beyond the D-line, which means linebackers and any DBs playing in the short zone cover areas? And then, of course, the worst possibility, and this is what every coach fears, somebody in the deep half, whether it's a corner in cover 3, a safety in cover, whatever, screwed up. And a guy's just running free down the field. And, of course, we all know that's when the other team strikes up the band. I think it's a little of all the 3 categories. And then it's just unfortunate, but like Wegman was under pressure all game long for A&M, but he's a really savvy kid. He just threw it away. And then he also threw it to Miami a little bit because of the pressure. That's unfortunate. Miami's not getting home as much as they need to. I mean, sacks, they're only 45th in the nation with in sacks. Considering Miami's talent, that's disappointing. Part of that is injury. There's nothing Miami can do about it. I mean, if they had Mesidor right now and Branson Dean, Miami's D would be probably a lot better, and these stats wouldn't be what they are. Can't do anything about it. Next man up mentality, that's where you're at. So there you go. But again, the passing defense, 30 and 40-yard plays, 68th and 63rd, and that delves into the next category. Passes defended. What does that mean? It means you got your hand on it. Did you physically make contact with the pass to at least knock it down? Now, I'm pretty sure interception counts the same, but I can't remember. But they're only 68th in the nation. Now, they got Cam, again, has been out part of the time, but you got James Williams back there. A lot of teams won't even throw his direction because he's such a freaking long-armed, athletic kid that there's really no comparison for him in college football, at least not right now. And then you got Jaden Davis, who's playing out of his mind. You got Corey that's played pretty good here lately. Brown hasn't played up to the level I thought he would. Richard, I don't know. He's played some. The kid that transferred in from Vanderbilt, he's another long, athletic kid. Damari, Devontae's brother, has played some. But they and I'm just kind of going down the list, but none of them have really taken a dominant foot forward. And this is my overall biggest concern. And it's almost for every team. There's 5 to 10 of these guys in college football that I'm about to define. My one biggest complaint with Miami, and it's not even close. And I thought they were going to have, I thought it was going to be Devontae, but it has not been. Do you have the unequivocal, no doubt about it, corner? He may not make a tackle for crap. He may not. But when you put him in front of a really good player, their number one or their number two on a play, especially a critical one, it's going to be extremely difficult to get the ball in there. I don't think Miami's tight coverage is where it needs to be considering their talent. I'm pointing to Devontae the most because I covered UCF for a while and I know what he can do. Maybe he's not adjusting as much. I don't know. It's a different scheme. But none of the guys, not just him, have taken that lead. It's just a dominant lockdown cover guy that the other team doesn't throw at much. And or if they do, the announcer in the booth is lighting up about how good this kid's playing. Now, the freebies and stuff I couch on, I'm not taking anything away from that. But oftentimes the best thing a corner can do is not have his name called. Why? The other team doesn't want to throw at him. Teams kind of spray the ball around against Miami for the most part. There are times, and I got a feeling that that's going to change some based on how number 22 has been playing, and now a little bit with Cal. He just had 2 picks, but Miami needs a straight up man guy that they can line up against some of these guys. And they're going to find out against Carolina in particular. Drake May he's not going to make many errors. He's going to be able to throw the ball in tight windows. If you can't play just straight up cover one, it's hard to slow them down, especially on third downs, where you can mix it up man and zone and change coverage after snap. I mean, you've got to be able to play cover one and be very good at it. Not just adequate to it, but very good at it. So that's something I'm worried about. They're only 69th in passes defended with all the defensive backs Miami has. Now, there are other things we could talk about, but the best thing that I think we could do is just be honest. Miami's on the cusp of where they need to be. They have not reached that plateau. Is there anything else that you would really like to see defensively? Sure, you would like to see the run defense be even better, but it's third in the nation. It's kind of hard to bitch. I think they're giving up 48 yards a game. That's lights out. Straight up lights out. So it's really just about pass D, and that's why I focused on this. If they can get up just all the categories I just mentioned, hypothetically, if Miami just went up 10 spots on all those categories, they can win every game they play this year in the regular season, be in the ACC title game, and from there, just whatever happens, happens. Fine line. You're a few plays away from being an elite defense. And it starts with that red zone. Teams, the block punt, the mishandled punt from Jacoby George. Sometimes those happen. You got to find a way to hold them to a field goal as much as those suck. I mean, those are hard. That I'm not going to hold them accountable for that. They shouldn't have been in those situations. But that's, those are touchdowns, man. You cannot give up touchdowns. And you have to find a way. Getting home, deflecting a pass, taking away a play, because the coverage was so good. Like they haven't covered running backs out of the backfield. There's all kinds of little things that Miami can still get better at on defense. And I don't think that anybody's going to disagree with that. They're close, but to reach that truly elite level that Miami's defense aspires to be, it's just little things. Execution. I know Mario is pretty boring in the press conferences, but he's right. It's just execution, being disciplined, etc. And that goes back to those penalties, by the way. That's still mind-blowing. 114th. Miami is not going undefeated if they end up in the 100s in penalties. I'll go ahead and answer that for you now. That'll cost them in a game at some point. That cannot happen. That's an across-the-board thing. And I know this is about defense here, but the defense is part of it too. They got to fix that. So just to give a summary here, the defense is good. It can get better. And it really starts with pass defense. They're going into a stretch here where they're going to play Haynes King, who's a pretty good player. Then Drake Mays, it's the best quarterback they're going to play against this year. And then finally, how do you solve some of the little goofy things like, an offsides penalty? Don't freak out if a deep ball is on you, just as an example. Don't just grab. Too many DBs freak out when the lights are on. Even if they're in good position, don't grab. Kid catches it. But if you're right there and it's a 50-50 ball, do the things you're taught. All the little things about execution that Mario talks about in press conferences is on the money. So anyway, make sure you check out All Hurricanes on Fan Nation. Going to have some more podcasts as now the schedule's ramping up. Do some previews, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, etc. And going to have some fun with it. But everybody have a great day. I appreciate you checking it out. Thank you very much.